this is Corey Lee's Boxing, and we are back with another banger. So please smash that like button, you guys, and subscribe. And yeah, man, I gotta talk this boxing, man. It's been a lot going on in the boxing world, man. I've been keeping up with, most of the stuff that's been going on. Smash that like button as soon as you guys come in, man. Let's get these likes all the way through the roof. So yeah, man, I've been keeping up with most of the boxing. I definitely want to talk about, Keith Thurman, because he's been on one lately, man. He went in, fought a game opponent, I feel like that, he was okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that Keith Thurman fought a former world champion, anything like that. I'm saying Keith Thurman fought a guy that he was supposed to go in there and beat, straight up. And he beat him, and he knocked him out. If you guys didn't watch the fight, Keith Thurman went in there, and he knocked him out. He did what he was supposed to do, and he looked good doing it. He looked good doing it, He didn't get touched up that much, and the fight was over before you knew it. You know what I mean? Before you knew it, the fight was over. If you blinked, the fight was over, so it was a quick matchup. Both guys, like I said, came in the fight, game. It was overseas. He did go to foreign soil, you know what I mean? So he did go to a whole nother, country. He went to Australia, I believe, and fought him. And he looked good, he looked good. And I believe this will set Keith Thurman up for another fight, for possibly a big fight, They're talking about possibly Keith Thurman versus Tim Tszyu, but Tim Tszyu's got to win his fight against Joey Spencer. That's another fight it's one of them fights, man. Joey Spencer is definitely, no cakewalk, for Tim Tszyu, especially after Tim Tszyu has been, iced twice. You know what I'm saying? I mean, well, he's been iced once, but the Fundora fight could have got stopped as well. You know what I mean? It was one of them fights that, he had blood in his eyes and all of this stuff, and it was definitely messing with his vision. But he lacks some of the fundamentals, like a key jab that you need in this boxing game to win the marquee fights. To be able to win these marquee fights, you're gonna need a really good jab, and you're gonna need to be able to pick your shots, instead of just coming forward the whole time, especially when you get there to the top level, like the Terrence Crawfords of the world, the Earl Spencers of the world, hell, even the Erickson Lupins of the world. You gotta have a good jab. All the good fighters that I know of, have a good jab. Have a really good, strong jab. And I feel like, Tim Tszyu, I feel like he does have a jab, but I feel like he needs to use it more, especially if he's going to fight, a guy like Keith Thurman. If this Joey Spencer fight, if he beats Joey Spencer and he knocks Joey Spencer out, I would want to see what he can do possibly in a fight moving forward with Keith Thurman. Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman, that's a really good fight. Both guys have losses. Keith Thurman has never been stopped. He lost a pretty tight decision against Manny Pacquiao. We all know that. I lost money on that fight, so I'm always gonna remember that fight. That's one that I can't forget. I lost over $600 on that fight, so I'm never gonna forget that fight. You know what I mean? I don't care if I become a millionaire. This is gonna be one of those things like, damn. I thought Keith Thurman was gonna do his thing. You know what I mean? I really did. I thought he was gonna beat Manny Pacquiao. And there was people that was in my ear saying that, Keith Thurman is not gonna beat Manny Pacquiao. Keith Thurman this. Keith Thurman is, that good, and he's good, you know, enough to be a world champion, but they just didn't think he could go to that next level, and they didn't think that Manny Pacquiao was all the way past his prime yet, and they thought he was going to be able to win that fight. And, you know, to be honest with you, Keith Thurman did, you know, win that. You know, he wind up losing that fight, but it was one of those things where it was just like, damn, man, he could have won the fight. I feel like Keith Thurman definitely could have did his thing, and you know, could have showed a lot of fans out there that he could have won that fight. You know what I mean? He could have won that fight. I think if he could have did a little bit more, he would have been able to win that fight. But you know, listen, it is what it is. You know, he lost the fight, and that was his only blemish on his resume against Manny Pacquiao, the great, you know, Manny Pacquiao, I believe 8-time world champion, if not more, or 8 division, world champion, if not more. And you know, him losing to that guy wasn't like it wasn't the end of his career. You know what I'm saying? It definitely wasn't the end of his career. You know, but it was one of those things where it was like, you know, I thought you could have did a little bit better. I'm gonna be honest with you. And he didn't, you know, so he lost. So now, you know, he fought Brock, and, you know, he knocked him out, did what he was supposed to do against Brock, and yeah, that's insanity. Oh my goodness. Dude's got rock chips coming. That's wild. But yeah, man, like I said, man, it's one of those things, you know, you know, and right now Keith Thurman is at a place, I feel like, where, you know, a lot of the champions his age or around his era are, you know, I feel like, you know, they're looking for maybe, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 more fights, and then they're going to probably retire, like the Earl Spencers, the Terrence Crawfords of the world. You know, all of these type of fighters that are in his era are already probably talking about packing it up not too long from now. You know, so Keith Thurman's coming in, you know, trying to have a resurgence in his career later in his career. You know what I'm saying? You know, later in his career. You know, I would have loved to see what a prime Keith Thurman could have did against, you know, Earl Spence, Terrence Crawford. We seen what a prime Keith Thurman did against Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. He beat both of those guys, you know? He beat both of those guys. But, listen, man, he did what he was supposed to do. You know, in his last fight, and I can't wait to see what, you know, Keith Thurman has in store for the future, because I don't think he's done. I think he still possibly can beat some of the guys that are in at 154 pounds. I feel like 154 pounds is kind of wide open, you know, to be honest with you. You got Fedor that's fighting this weekend. You know, you got some other champions that are fighting as well. And you know, look, they're fighting and they're trying to build a name for themselves. You know, Keith Thurman already has a name. Keith Thurman has already been a world champion. Keith Thurman has, you know, already fought, you know, big crowds, 10,000 plus fans screaming, you know, 15 plus thousand fans screaming, you know, and he's fought in big arenas, you know. So listen, I think Keith Thurman is awesome for the sport when he is fighting, but he has a lot of shenanigans outside of boxing too that he, you know, but he had got injured as well too. So you know, you got to be healthy in this sport, and you know, boxing is what have you done for me lately. You know, that's the type of sport it's in. But listen, he's done well for himself and his family. He's, you know, probably been able to. Right now, Keith Thurman could probably retire and be good. But I know he wants to get another world title And he possibly wants to unify at 154 pounds if he can. You know, if Keith Thurman can unify at 154 pounds, like I said, it's wide open, man. 154 pounds is wide open right now. You know, you got the guy that beat Tim Tszyu. I'm sorry if I'm gonna butcher his name. You know, pretty good guy. Good fundamentals. Picked apart Tim Tszyu and was nothing wrong with his eye. Nothing. I just think that he had the wrong game plan. Tim Tszyu was trying to, you know, out-brawl the brawler, you know. That guy showed Tim Tszyu that he had brawl, he had, you know, he had that brawling mentality where he could, you know, get it done. And he iced Tim, man. And, you know, that fucked up Tim because Tim was trying to, you know, win that world title and possibly unify and possibly try to fight for undisputed. That put a hold on all his plans, you know. Put a hold on all of his plans. So, you know. And so now we got the, you know, let's touch that. We got on the Keith Thurman and the Tim Tszyu situation. Let's touch bases on Gervonta Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach and Tank Davis. You know, Lamont Roach versus Tank Davis. You guys, if you guys didn't watch the fight, if you guys have been under a rock lately, it was a pretty good fight. You know, I'm not taking anything away from either guy. It was a pretty good fight. You know, like I said, you know, it was a pretty good fight, pretty good, tight, close fight. I know a lot of people said that Lamont Roach got robbed. I don't feel like it was a robbery. You can't say it's a robbery on tight fights, man. It's gonna be tight fights in boxing, you know, especially when they're evenly matched. You know, I think possibly Tank Davis and them possibly underestimated Roach just a little bit. You know, just a little bit, because I think that Roach came in there with a game plan, as you know what I mean. He wasn't just trying to outbox him. He was in the pocket as well. If you guys look at Lamont Roach, he was in the pocket. He wasn't just dodging, you know what I mean. Yeah, he was dodging some of the punches from you know, Tank Davis, but at the end of the day, you know, this is boxing. And if you're going to be in the pocket, you got to be able to dodge some of those bullets that Gervonta Tank Davis is throwing. Because he said he had a full clip. Mind you. You know what I mean? Listen, for whatever reason, he did not knock out Lamont Roach. And that goes for a lot of Tank Davis fights. If he doesn't get the knockout, respectfully, if he does not get the knockout, it's going to be that what if factor at the end. It's going to be, you know, damn, you know what I'm saying? He didn't get the knockout. Now what? Well, by the 10th, 11th, 12th, by the 10th round, I had a feeling he was not going to knock him out. You never really know 100% with Tank Davis. But, you know, the way the fight was going, man, Lamont Roach didn't look tired. He didn't look like a lot of the punches was affecting him, or his eyesight, or his coordination. And you know, he was there to, you know, he was there to exchange, and he was there for it, man. He was there for it, man. And you know, Gervonta Tank Davis, man, you guys say what you guys say about him, man. At the end of the day, he's got to be able to finish and close fights. You know, he's got to be able to close fights. He's got to be able to close these fights up and be able to, you know, finish these fights the way they need to be finished. You know what I'm saying? And the way we know him to finish fights. We know Gervonta Tank Davis to knock motherfuckers completely out. You know what I mean? Look how he did Leo Santa Cruz. Look how he did Frank Martin, the Ghost. You know what I'm saying? He's knocked guys the fuck out completely. Ice season for sure. And he's got to do that again, man, with Lamont Roach. I don't think that he can win another close decision again. You know what I mean? I think the judges playing fair with that whole situation. They was playing fair. You know, a lot of people are gonna be like, man, you know, Tank lost that fight and all that. You got a lot of Tank haters out here anyways, man. You know, I'm just calling it how I see it, man. You know. I mean, I didn't see Lamont Roach winning that fight 8-4, no shit like that. I mean, that's what some people are, you know, I guess implying. You know what I mean? That if it's a robbery, then you clearly see Lamont Roach win, you know, 8, 9, 10 rounds. If it's a robbery. If it's like, oh my God, this is, you know, what the hell would we just watch? This is, you know, clearly one guy won. Now, if that wasn't the case to me, you know, to me, I felt like, you know, Gervonta Tank Davis did enough to possibly get a close decision or to get a draw. You know what I mean? You know? But I can see where people would say that Lamont Roach, you know, should have won that fight. And Lamont Roach, you know, did enough to win that fight. I can see, you know, their argument. I can see where they were coming with that. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, at the end of the day, it's looking like we could possibly get a rematch. If not a rematch, then we could possibly get, from what they're saying is, possibly, if we don't get the Lamont Roach versus Gervonta Tank Davis rematch, they're talking about, you know, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Jake Paul. And I know a lot of you guys, Corey low key, the knee should have counted. That was one of those, shout out to Kennedy in the chat, man. That was one of those things where the knee definitely was suspect. You know what I mean? I'm not here to, you know, coattail him or, you know, tell you any different. The knee was wild. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna lie, I don't know why he took a knee, but that's questions we gotta ask him. You know, and I know Coach Calvin put on his Instagram that, you know, when your knee touches the ground, not from a blow, but, you know, if you put your knee down, that is not counted as a knockdown. That is in the rule book. So he pulled up rule book, you know, Gervonta Tank Davis's coach and trainer, you know, Coach Calvin. And, you know, I seen where he put that on Instagram, you know, so listen, man, you know, it was a tough stylistic matchup for Gervonta Tank Davis, which I thought that they underestimated Lamont. And this is what happened. That are not going into the fighters that are not worrying about your big punches, because for whatever the case is or whatever the reason is, they got history. And you know, that history, man, listen, man, that, you know, he knew how to fight him. He knew what he was doing with Gervonta Tank Davis, and you could clearly see that they had history, and that he had shared the ring with, you know, Lamont Roach before. You can clearly see that. So, and that played a big factor, man. But yeah, man, I gotta go, man. I wanted to give you guys a quick little live stream. Smash that like button and subscribe. I will be back for sure. You ain't even gotta worry about that. I will be back. Possibly tonight, if not tonight, tomorrow for the Fedor fight. I'm gonna start doing these lives and knocking these shits out, man. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And you know, like I said, smash that like button and subscribe. What you say, Kennedy? Let me see what Kennedy talking about. Kennedy said, man, not so fast. Not so. He says, okay, so why when Floyd punched that dude and broke his hand, Floyd took the knee, not from a punch, but from his hand? You gotta talk to Coach Calvin, man. Coach Calvin posted that shit, and, you know, I guess he felt some type of way about what everybody was saying, and he posted like the rule book out there. You know, he threw the rule book in there. You know what I mean? I guess, you know, these referees, man, they're finicky, man. They, You know, some of them will count certain shit, some of them won't. You know what I'm saying? So it's all on what kind of referee you get, I feel like. You know, and it shouldn't be like that, but shit, that's the way it's looking like it is. You know, because like you said, Floyd Mayweather, you know, got counted, and you know, stuff like that. So, you know, probably shouldn't have got counted, but did get counted. And yeah, man, one of those things, man. It's one of those things, man. That referee, man, they was talking about the referee eyes and all types of wild shit. I don't know why they was doing that man like that, man. They was doing that man dirty. Doing that man dirty. You know what I mean? Yeah, but Floyd definitely got, you know, he got counted, you know what I mean? Definitely got counted. And it was one of those things, man, you know, Gervonta Tank Davis, they didn't count that knockdown. They did not count that knockdown. And that could have decided the fight. That could have definitely decided the fight. You know? But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Please smash that like button, you guys, and subscribe. And until next time, you guys. Peace.